lesson or the topic for this, lesson is the Antichrist controversy. And, this is in reference to certain passages, that you read within the Johannine epistles, which are, your First John and your Second John, etc. But this is in reference to, not only what you see there, but what people take from there and try to apply to other places in the Bible. So they'll see the word Antichrist, and so they'll make a doctrine out of that, and then they'll, take it to, Matthew and, Colossians and what Thessalonians, etc. But what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna go into, the history contextually and historically, right? To actually unveil what the writer of John was talking about when he spoke about the Antichrist, right? So to just set the initial premise, an Antichrist, by definition or by the word's definition, is an adversary of Christ. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull it up so you guys can see it, so you guys don't have to just take my word for it. And later on, we're gonna go into a few sources and things like that. But first, let's just start with the actual word for quote unquote Antichrist, right? Let me get my screen shared so that y'all can see it. So right here we see Strong's G500, which is Antichristos, and as you'll see right here, it says KJV translation count total is 5 times. So this particular word is used 5 times, and each time it's being referenced, it's talking about something specific, right? Something specific is being addressed. So all the other doctrines that people try to make out of, the Antichrist, quote unquote, it doesn't reflect the context in which the Bible actually mentions the word Antichrist. And we're gonna go through go through with proving this by first utilizing lexical analysis, then the immediate context, and then we're going to examine the theme, and then we're going to go into some other methods, right? And we're going to do it all through the Spirit and power of the Most High, of course, right? So let's start with the grammar and lexical analysis. Let's go to the book of First John, chapter 2, and verse 18. And King, if you can, just read First John chapter 2, verse 18, and I'm reading in the ESV.
All right. Let me start verse 18, right?
Just verse 18 for right now.
Okay. It says, children, it is the last hour, and as you have heard that the Antichrist is coming, so now many Antichrists have come, Salakia. Therefore we know that it is the last hour.
So, there are people that will read this and they'll say, oh, look, right there, it says the Antichrist is coming. Do you think he's going to be born in the next 10 years and blah, blah, blah? But honestly speaking, if you just examine even the English grammar, you like a breakdown like that doesn't even make sense in this chapter. But we're going to go into the Greek language to further break this down. So I'm going to pull up the forward interlinear. And as we see, again, like I mentioned before, the word Antichrist is G500. Antichristos, we see it used right here. And then we look down here, it's used again, which is Antichristoi, which is in the plural. So, and also this is a cut to anybody that just says, oh, the Antichrist is just one Antichrist. Because even when you read the English translation, it says there are many Antichrists. But people will run around and stand on business and say hey, it's the Antichrist. But the writer of First John already said it's many antichrists, plural. So that's um that's a cut number one to that. But something that we have to pay attention to again within the grammar is this word right here, G1096, which is genomai, and is inflected as yegunasin. Um, and let's click on this, right? 1096. And I hate that it opens up another tab. So again, genomai, which is 1096, it means again, it's in, I believe this one was in third person, a perfect verb, and it's a plural meaning, and it means to come into existence, arise, appear, etc. Right. So, just first takeaway grammatically is that antichrist, plural, have arose by the time the writer of First John pens this letter. The second takeaway is that there are antichrists, as in more than one, right? So again, I just want to emphasize that the reason that these points are important is because within the so-called antichrist doctrine, from a Christian perspective, it typically it describes one person who will appear at the end of the world, quote unquote, and he'll deceive many, and he'll be this powerful influencer on the earth. But as we read right here, just in this one verse, we see that for one, it was multi antichrist, and number two, they appeared in the day of the writer of First John, right? So, and before I move on, any of you brothers got any points? Because I want to make sure I keep it open.
I think you're making a great assessment overall with the topic, especially with the way that people look at it. They're looking for this one ruler to come. And I remember being younger and being in the Christian church, and the way that they taught it, I thought that way also. So it had my eyes open. Every president that we would get in the United States, I'm looking for the character traits of the Antichrist. I'm looking for certain signs that just point to someone that's some evil dictator that's gonna come on the scene, and he's gonna have this authority and he's gonna abuse it in order to deceive the masses and basically want to exalt himself above Christ. And this is how you're taught to look at it. So you start looking for this person that's never gonna come, and then in all actuality, there are many antichrists all around us all the time, and we just don't realize it. You know,
God, all praises to the Most High, all praises, and the water for the point as well. And Ak, if you got a point, brother Ezra, you can bring it out as well.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you're doing a phenomenal job, just explaining, how there's many antichrists, and if anything, instead of waiting on the antichrist, I mean, he's been here the whole time since John's time, right? He's been ruling. I don't think we have to wait on him anywhere, if we're gonna go with that doctrine.
God, God, all praises. That's a good point. Um, let's move on. Right, let's go to another passage. Um, if you cannot read for me, just for right now, First John chapter 4 verse 3.
Okay, so this is the book of Saint John, chapter 4, verses 3. And it reads, and it says, and every spirit that does not confess, right, Yahushua is not from God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you have heard was coming and now is in the world already.
Con. So here it says every spirit that doesn't confess Yahweh, or in the English translation it says Jesus, is not from God. And this is in reference, again, if you just pay attention to the language within the text, this is in reference to Yahweh appearing in flesh, which we're going to go into a little bit later. But this verse um, says, this is the spirit of Antichrist, which they heard was coming and now is in the world, right? So again, this is the writer of First John. He wrote this epistle as well as the second epistle, right? And he speaks of the Antichrist, and he says that, um, or I guess Antichrist plural, because we read it in his other the other chapter, but he says that they're already in the world, So this isn't anything that is like, all right, you know, I wonder who it is, right? No, like the people that were dealing with this, like John and his disciples, they knew exactly who these people were, and so they knew to they knew to mark them and to get away from them, right? There's actually a matter of fact, and I should have put it to the side to go into, but I was reading in this particular book. It's called the New Testament World Historical Context, etc. And it actually it gives an account of Saint John. He was in like a bathhouse, and it was this particular heretic that was kind of pushing this doctrine, right? His name is I believe his name was Cerinthus, right? And it said that John was like, he heard that he was like in the vicinity, and he was like, oh no, I'm about to get away from this dude, for the Lord strike this bathhouse. And so the people, like especially the apostles, they knew who these people were, and they did not want to be nowhere near them because the Lord could strike judgment at any time. So again, the notion that, oh, we don't know who the Antichrist is, we're waiting for him to make himself manifest, and like that's not nothing that the apostles was pushing. Like that's not what the scriptures teach, right? But real quick, let's take a look at the lexical data for this particular passage, right? Let's go into we can just pull up the interlinear, forward interlinear, and again, you'll see that it utilizes the word or the root antichrist or antichristos, and it utilizes the inflection antichristal, which is when you click a little bit on here, it gives you some of the parsing, and it says it's in a genitive singular masculine, and this is something that indicates that the possessing that it's the possessing party, and right here the subject, because the possessing party, it possesses the subject, and the subject is a particular spirit, so these particular individuals are moving in the spirit of Antichrist, and this was on several people, right? So several people would have been called Antichrist. This person, he's teaching this particular doctrine that lines up with the certain parameters that are already set. That's an Antichrist. That's an Antichrist, etc. Again, it's no ambiguity to what this is, and so that's something I do want to harp on as well, because you have people like I'm listening to a conversation this week, and I just seen this comment that's funny, but I'm having a conversation this week, and this dude, he's like, he always brings this doctrine out, but he says, if you don't believe that Jesus was born of just Mary, just a virgin, then you're an Antichrist. And it's like what Bible verse say that? Like, but people, they're just making their own definition of what an Antichrist is. But when you look, like, just if you look at the surface of what John says, like how the sister Wendy put, it'll be a brother that denies that Yahushua existed. It denies that he ever came into existence. He didn't live. He didn't walk the earth, etc. That's a reasonable takeaway, because the text, just on a surface level, it reads like that. But for people to start going a step further and saying, yeah, if you don't believe in a 3-part triune Godhead, then you're an antichrist. And if you don't believe in a virgin birth and all the, like, again, it starts to be a bit much, and that's where that's where dogma comes into play, and that's where it starts to permeate and I, honestly speaking, um poison the community, so to speak, right? But it's a little bit more on this, right? Let me go back to the interlinear. That was a good point, Sister Wendy. But let's look at this particular word. Let's look down. G2064, which is erchatai, which is that's the inflection, G2064, and the root is erkomai. And when you look at this particular word, let me pull it up. It actually it's a verb, and it means to come. Yeah, basically to come or to appear, right? So, and I believe when we looked at it, grammatically speaking, it's in the present middle indicative. So, basically it's saying that this particular you know this particular party, dealing with the person that's described as an antichrist, they are appearing currently. So this is something that's currently going on. And when you look again at the passage itself, just reading it in the English translation, it says, "This is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you heard was coming, and now is in the world already." So this isn't something that they were waiting on, and they, it never happened, and they were never able to identify. But it said that they heard that they were coming, and now they're in the world already, right? And already, grammatically speaking, is dealing with something that is happening and has happened, right? So